Hey cats, come on in. What's happening, my friends? Finish up an interesting little project here. Some may find it a little odd, but look at this. An old ladder. Yeah, it's an old wooden ladder, and I've had this thing for many years. My dad gave me this ladder, and it's got to be at least 60 years old, if not more. My dad used it when I was a kid, and he had it at his house, and then he passed it on to me, and I've used it for a long time. But most recently, I retired it. Now, the rails here, I think, are made out of a cedar, and the rungs seem to be like oak. They're very hard. But the rails here are a very soft wood. You see on the side there's a wood burned in there, CMPD, and that would most likely be Cleveland Metropolitan Park District. So way back in the year, that ladder was retired from the parks, and my dad was employed there, so he took ownership of it and used it. But it's an antique. I mean, it's pretty neat. Got some nice grain in it, and at any rate, you know, why would I spend the time on this? Well, the thing was covered with paint, as you can imagine. It had been used for many years, so the paint was like caked on these rungs. Just all multicolors of paint you could think of, house paint, stains, a little bit of everything. So I used my random orbital sander, and I just kind of worked it and got most of the paint off very easily. I had to do some hand sanding in some of the tight spots, but I was able to get all the paint out. I had to pick the paint out from the letters there because they were completely filled in with paint. Just a lot of use over the years. I retired this ladder actually because, you know, I was using it a lot, but I thought, boy, you know, the thing's getting old. And the more I looked at it, I mean, look at some of the grain on here. You see it kind of splintered there. And I thought, you know, if this thing ever breaks on me when I'm up in the air, you see it's got some crack right there. And I go down. This is a 14-foot ladder. So, you know, that could probably be like about a 8 or 10-foot fall to the ground. And it probably would have been hurt pretty bad, if not killed. So what I did in the meantime, I replaced it with this, it's called a gorilla ladder. It's this folding ladder. It folds into a step ladder, or you can extend it like all the way up, and it's like a 20-foot ladder. And it comes in real handy. It's aluminum, lightweight. But you know, this wooden ladder is even lighter than that aluminum ladder. That's the interesting thing. But anyway, you know, my wife and I were talking, and I said, well, I got to get rid of this thing. And she said, well, don't get rid of it. Why don't we see if we can clean it up a little bit, and let's talk about putting it in the house. So my idea is when I get it in there, if you've ever been in my house, I have the loft that goes, you know, the second floor loft up there, and it's all open. I thought I would put it right like in the living room going up to the loft and just kind of bolt it onto the beam there permanently. And so it'll be sticking up pretty much vertical. And, you know, you can hang things on the rungs, display, you know, I don't know. So my wife likes to crochet. She crochets some nice things and hang them on the rungs, or blankets or whatever you want to hang on the rungs. But I think it'll be pretty cool. Now, the thing it reminds me of, you know, this old wooden ladder and going vertically up into the loft, remind me of when I was a kid, and we used to live on this old farm. We rented one of the houses there on the farm. And on that farm, there was a great big bank barn, you know, with a gambrel roof. And as kids, we knew how we could sneak in there. There was a way you could go around the back, and you could pry out a couple boards and squeeze in there, and we could get in the barn. And then we go upstairs and we get up to where the hay loft was, and they stored all kinds of hay in there. It was stacked clear up to the ceiling. And these ladders like this were built right into the hand-hewn beams, and you could, climb vertically right up into the hay and climb into the hay loft. And we were kids. We used to go up in there, and we'd build hay forts in there. We'd make tunnels and stack the bales like Legos, and make little forts and things up there. The other thing we would do is, if the ladder went up, and then there was a main beam that was went across the and then there was hay up above that too. But that main beam was a great big hand-hewn beam, and it was probably about 10 feet up, maybe, at least at least that high, if not higher, than our ceiling here. And we would break some bales of hay and throw them down on the floor and pile them up, and get maybe a good 3-4 foot of hay piled up there. And then we'd climb up the ladder to the loft, and we'd leap off and boom, right into the pile of hay. Well, the people who had the hay in there weren't very happy by the fact if they didn't want us in the barn at all. They would have had a fit if they ever caught us in there. I don't know what they would have done, grabbed me by the ear and dragged me out of there or something. But as kids, we had no fear, we had no care. But we'd be in there playing up in the loft, and we would hear the workers coming. They would hear their truck pull up, and we think, uh-oh, we got to get out of here. We got to get out of here fast. Well, there was a couple different things we could do. Of course, we could jump down into the pile of hay. And then there was it was an old dairy farm. So down below in the basement were all the stanchions, where all the cattle was, and the stalls where the cattle were. So there was these wooden chutes that they would throw hay down that would feed the cattle. So we could jump down, slide down that chute. It would take us right into the basement, and we could sneak out the back, and they would never know we were there. Now the workers would come in, and they'd see all that straw piled up on the floor that we had jumped up from the loft, and they would be pissed off. They didn't, we broke open good bales of hay and had them piled up on the floor. So they would usually take that hay and sweep it all the way out, and there was big sliding doors at the back of the barn, but when you open those doors, it dropped off all the way down to the ground. You couldn't go drive out that way. It was like 10 foot down. And they'd sweep the hay right out the back, and it would fall into a pile where there was manure and rotten hay and everything else down there. That was another one of our escape routes. We'd have that back door open a crack, and we could run out there and take a jump off and land right in that pile of manure and rotten hay, and make a run for it, head for the woods before we got caught. Well, we were in there one day, and we had a friend over, and we were playing up in the hay, and we heard the truck come. So we climbed down, and we thought, boy, we got to move fast. We're going out the back door. We're going to jump right out the door and like 10 foot down into the pile of manure. And the one boy that was with us, he was scared to death. For us, this was a routine thing. We knew how to work this thing, so we weren't so frightened. We just knew all the escape routes to get out of there before we got caught. Well, he was scared to death. He had never been in there before. And, he was practically trembling because these workers were starting to come up towards the barn, and we had to jump and run. And he didn't want to jump. He was afraid. I guess it was like the first time you jump out of an airplane. If you're a paratrooper, you hang onto the door and you're like, I don't know if I can do it or not. Well, my brother thought he would help him along, and my brother gave him a little persuasion, And the kid flew out of there and was flailing his arms and legs every which way. And instead of hitting the ground and doing a tumble and taking a run for the woods, he hit the ground a little more awkward and fractured his arm. Wasn't very pretty, wasn't very fun for anybody, but we did manage to get out of there without getting caught. And he had to take a little trip to the hospital and get his arm in a cast. Unfortunate accident. And I don't think he ever came over to visit us again. Yeah, he was a little leery to hang out with us boys. We were a little too much for him, and especially playing up there in the barn. But anyway, this ladder will bring back memories of that, especially when I have it rigged up in the house there and going straight up to the ceiling against the loft. I think it'll be a cool addition. I can just see the grandkids trying to climb up it. And you know, it's sturdy enough. I mean, I could still use it for climbing today, but I just thought, you know, better safe than sorry. It does have a little bit of a twist to it. I don't know if you can see that. Just kind of warped over the years. But it, you know, it was still very functional. Kind of a neat old ladder. I'm pretty happy the way it turned out. An antique. You know, you go to the antique stores and you can find these things for sale, and they're not cheap either. They sell them for a pretty good penny. So that took me about 2 days. So that killed about 2 days out here in the shed while the weather was snowing and sleeting and half raining. Today my wife and I stopped at the secondhand store, and I found an old Craftsman torque wrench. $3 I got this thing, so it'd come in handy. You can always use another torque wrench. You know, it's got this smaller drive on there, but that's fine. Come in handy for some smaller projects, working on the scooter or even the lawnmower or something, you know. So there you go. That's all I got for you today. It's cold, it's dinner time. I gotta close up shop, head in. I think my wife was cooking up some kind of a shrimp noodle thing tonight, and that sounds good. I like those Asian dishes. So anyway, I'm going to head out of here. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate your support. Appreciate you guys hanging out. And if you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't yet, please subscribe. I appreciate it. And until next time, guys, I'll catch you later.